Mr. Chair, we're in public session.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Our public session for April 26, 2022. I call to order the meeting. We're going to agenda item number 2, the approval of the public session minutes for March 18th and 29th. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections on the minutes? Everyone can.
I have a comment, Chair.
Go ahead.
On the March 29th minutes, I think there's an error. Page 6, toward the bottom, well, 5th line from the bottom, the statute of limitations is held. I don't know if probably should say hold, but Commissioner Levine would know for sure what he said. Could have said held and spoken more colloquially than the technical term told. I don't know.
Commissioner Levine, do you want to make a correction on that?
Well, Your Honor, could you point that out again to me on page 6, please?
Page 6, toward the bottom, 2, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Maybe you said held, but I would have thought more likely you said told.
That's correct.
Which is correct?
Thank you.
Told is correct?
Statute of limitations.
It should be told, yes. Thank you. But while we're, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Go ahead.
I want to thank Judge Braun. On page 7, and maybe I'm misapprehending the sentence. It's about my favorite subject, which is me. Commissioner Levine disagreed with Executive Director Merlin that the Office of Inspector General has, under its enabling act, no prosecutorial power. Well, what I was trying to convey is the Inspector General has no prosecutorial power, but the sentence is a little confusing. Whoever was the minute taker understands what I was conveying. That's fine with me. Who took the minutes?
We take them in, it's a cumulative effort, but I would point out that you all are in the 29th. I just would prefer that we deal with them in sequence. So we can make those changes as you've requested, but are there any amendments to the earlier set on the 18th?
All right, so let's take a vote to approve. All in favor of approving the March 18th, 2022 minutes?
All right, I'll get Bill your second. It is unanimous.
Second, yeah.
Okay, now we move to the March 29th minutes. So there's 2 corrections, correct?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I move to adopt the March 29th minutes as amended. Fisher?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, it's unanimous.
Well, I would just note I abstained. I was not present at that meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Okay. One abstention from Judge Henry. Reports from staff. We have an operations update.
Yes, the operations update is can be found under tab C, attachment C. I would only say that we're operating and have been operating at normal levels, and frankly, notwithstanding the outage we had in our systems of approximately 3 weeks. Normal activity levels have been achieved. And we're happy to answer any questions any commissioners may have about any of the information.
You know what?
Okay.
Anything? Okay.
Do you have a question? Okay, no questions.
Thank
Let's
you.
move on to the legislative update, please.
Yes, the new statute, the Ethics Commission Reform Act of 2022, was adopted by the legislature on April 8th. It was signed by Governor Hochul on April 9th. I think all commissioners have reviewed the legislation. We're happy to answer any questions commissioners may have at this time. In executive session, we'll be talking about matters related to transition from the current agency to the new agency, and how staff and commissioners are preparing for that transition. Commissioner Fisher?
So my question has to do with budgetary authority to spend money. So as I understand it, the state legislature appropriated funds to a newly named agency, and yet we have ongoing operations, payroll, contracts, that sort of thing. So do we have clear authority from budget office or someone else to continue spending the money that was appropriated in the current fiscal year?
I've spoken with the Department of the Budget, and they said that the appropriation and the cash balance are available to us to utilize. I did that in the context of ensuring that payrolls would continue to be covered, and obligations like rent and other contractual services would be paid. So they've confirmed that we have access to those funds.
Good, and that'll continue through July 8th, and even if there are no commissioners that have been appointed and approved by the committee by July 9th, this agency will have the ongoing authority to carry out its contractual obligations and its payroll obligations after this set of commissioners is
I think those are issues that we have on the agenda in executive session.
Got it. Thank you.
To get into more texture and more detail on that aspect of it.
Thanks.
But we do feel that we have clearance and authorization for our operations through July 8th.
Good.
Any other comments, questions, staff, regarding the update on the legislative, the new law? All right, the new and other business.
But before that, Chair, just briefly wanted to give our Director of Operations, Steve Bolden, an opportunity. We did not include in the original packet, but separately sent to commissioners, the fourth quarter financial report for the commission. And I don't know if any commissioners have any questions about it, but Steve would be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you. The year-to-date disbursement for the year, where personal service we dispersed close to or just over $4.8 million, or 105% of our budget. Fortunately, we made it up on our NPS side of it, where we spent $750,000, or 72% of our budget. So overall, for the year, we spent $5,558,000, or 99% of our budget. And we will be paying out due to carry-out payments in the next few weeks. Any questions? Very much.
All right, thank you,
you.
Steve. Thank you, Steve.
All right, moving on to new and other business. Any comments for the business that the commissioners have for the public staff? Seeing no hands,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead, Commissioner Levine.
Do we have a report from the litigation committee, please?
On what, Commissioner Levine?
We would be doing that, Commissioner Levine, in executive session.
So there will be no discussion in the public session, with regard to the lawsuit by Governor Cuomo against the commission. That will all be in the executive session.
That would be the norm in a situation involving litigation.
I mean, what we can say in public session is that we have received some of the complaints from the former governor. We have retained counsel to address that litigation. Now, as to the litigation and the specifics, I think it would be proper to discuss that in executive session. But, you know, we acknowledge the fact that we did receive the summons and complaint, and we will be filing, making filings in that case, and we've already retained counsel.
On April 1, at the same juncture at which the lawsuit was initiated by Governor Cuomo, one of his attorneys sent a letter to the Inspector General regarding breaches of confidentiality, in particular making a false allegation against me. May I ask, Mr. Chairman, or may I direct my question to Judge Berlin, has the Office of Inspector General contacted our staff with respect to Ms. Glavin's letter?
I'll leave it to the executive director.
We have not been contacted with respect to Ms. Glavin's letter by the Office of the Inspector General.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, if I may continue, there was a discussion at a previous meeting regarding the recusal and abstention protocol. Staff was supposed to return, I believe, at this meeting with a report on how we ought to approach changes, if at all.
Are we covering that in executive session, staff?
Mr. Chairman, that issue, rightly or wrongly, was sort of paused when the legislature was moving their bill through the process, and so there's not an update to present this month in terms of changes to the recusal policy.
Well, I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that we notice it for the public session for a vote at the May meeting.
I'll take down their advisement.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Breen.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Following me?
Yes, Commissioner Braun.
I just wanted to say generally, we've been around this many times, but unless it's confidential, matters should be taken up at the public session, or at least may be taken up at the public session as opposed to executive session. As a matter of transparency, the public should have the right to hear what we do by way of what we say at the public session, unless it's something that's required to be confidential under a statutory, the enactment of the commission under the statute that enacted us. So therefore, if it's not confidential, it should be discussed, or at least it may be discussed at the public session.
Go ahead, Commissioner Yates.
Two things. First of all, with regard to the abstention and recusal policy, the statute changes all of that as of July 8th. So I'm not opposed to discussing it now or in the May meeting or whatever, but I just point out to people that any discussion or rule change we make is moot because the new statute comes in and it sets forth a recusal policy, a public disclosure of reasons for recusal, which I think is a lot of what Gary was looking for. The other thing, with regard to what Commissioner Braun just said, it might be a little too oblique. I'm not sure that the rest of the world pays attention to some of the minutiae that we deal with. And so I think it ought to, at the very least, be laid out on the record. There was reference to litigation by Governor Cuomo. Let's be clear. There are two different kinds of actions involving Governor Cuomo surrounding the book. And there's a separation. There's a Section 13 and a Section 16 issue that are floating around. Normally, the Section 13 issue, which is an enforcement action, would be confidential. However, in a public filing, I'm not saying anything new, in a public filing, I think even with a press release, Governor Cuomo has sued to stay or going forward to stay enforcement. So the world could or should know that an enforcement action that Governor Cuomo that sees in the future, he's sued publicly to stop. We did what you're supposed to do in that case, and that is go to the Attorney General and say, Attorney General, please represent us here. The Attorney General has refused to represent us, which means that going forward on an enforcement action is problematic if you've got litigation where the governor is suing you publicly to stop it and the Attorney General won't represent you. The only alternative is to go and get our own lawyers so that we can vindicate the ethical requirements and obligations of JCOB. We have an obligation to go forward when we see something that we think requires enforcement. And if there's litigation to stop us from that, and the Attorney General won't represent us, then we have to go out and get our own lawyer. I understand that in the executive session, we're going to talk about that. Commissioner Levine asked that we have a report from the litigation committee. Well, that's going to be one of the primary issues in the executive session. I'm not leaking any secrets when I tell you. In the executive session, I guess it's proposed that we will discuss how the heck we're supposed to do our job, and that is enforce the public officers law when there's a lawsuit against us and the AG won't represent us. And that's what we're going to try and figure out. I just wanted to lay that out because I think most observers might not know that whole history.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, lastly, if I may, Mr. Chairman, lastly, I will propose again at the May meeting that the Commission request that Inspector General Lang reopen the Inspector General Office's investigation of the breach of confidentiality occurred at the January 2019. I request, Mr. Chairman, that you notice my motion for the public session. Thank you.
And that's for the May meeting, correct, Commissioner Valentine?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Jacob, you're muted. Commissioner Jacob, you're muted.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Judge Yates began by saying that there are two different actions that are extant under Section 13 and Section 16. I have just heard about the enforcement action and the Section 16 actions. They are different, I take it, Judge Yates, are they not?
You're muted, Judge Yates.
I guess this falls under the rhetorical question category. Section 13 is when we have reason to believe that there's been a violation of the public officers law and we go to take action to enforce that with the potential of a civil fine or some kind of restriction upon public service activity. Section 16, which we've spent a lot of time publicly talking about, calls for approval of outside activities, such as an example being permission to write a book or to teach a course as an adjunct. And when you do that, if without permission, then, and you gain something, you profit from that, there's a question. We're of a belief, we've said this publicly, that when there's unlawful gain, unapproved income derived, when there's a requirement of approval, that disgorgement, the equitable remedy of disgorgement is appropriate, and that would be under 16. So yeah, there are two different issues.
Thank you.
other comments or questions? All right. That will close the new and other business item. We'll move to enter into executive session pursuant to 94-819B. Can I have a motion to move into executive session, please?
I'll make that motion, Fisher, or I'll second, sorry.
Commissioner Fisher moved. Who's the second? Commissioner DeFerro. And all in favor, raise your hand.
It's unanimous.
Oh, thank you. All right, we're going into executive session.
Please stand by.
On Thursday.
We're back in public session.
Thank you, Officer.
Okay, the report, the Commission's report out. The Commission discussed litigation and directed its outside counsel to file a timely response to the action brought by the former governor. The Commission authorized steps in several investigative matters and discussed several other investigative matters. And finally, the Commission considered informal guidance pursuant to Executive Law 9416.
Executive Director Berland, is there any other?
Yeah, I would like to, with a good deal of regret and sadness, recognize that this is Martin Levine's, our acting general counsel's, last commission meeting. For over a decade, Martin has brought a level of knowledge and sophistication in governmental ethics and lobbying regulation to this commission that I think is unprecedented. He is an acknowledged, well beyond the bounds of this institution, expert in those fields. And in addition to all of that, he's a phenomenal individual who has moved this organization along in ways that I think have not gotten the recognition, partly because of the way the commission necessarily functions, that he deserves. But he is certainly, in the short time I've been here with the commission, been a teacher, a guide, a reliable aide, and a voice of knowledge and reason that one rarely encounters in any institution. I have to thank him for the work he's done for this institution, for me, for everyone else who works here, and frankly for the people of this state and beyond the bounds of this state. This is, it's a good opportunity for Martin, and I know he will succeed in anything he pursues. But I feel it almost as a personal loss, and I think it's a loss to the people of the state. I know he will be out there and around and available to help out, and I hope everyone recognizes the kind of contribution he's made in this realm of law and regulation. Thank you, Martin, for everything you've done.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of the commissioners, I want to thank you, Mr. Levine, for all your extraordinary service to the state and to the commission. You know, consistently with all the commissioners, we have looked to you for guidance, and it's nothing but the absolute best counsel we can go for, and in no regard has we been disappointed. So I want to thank you again, not only for your work on the commission as general counsel, but as deputy general counsel for over a decade, and we wish you all the well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Is there a motion to close the public session?
I'll make that motion, Chair. Fisher?
Second by DeFerro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It appears unanimous.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Be well.
Good day.